This lesson is very much like the previous one, except the creation and use of a jar file is added to the application. And this makes the ant build file a little more interesting. In fact, this is where some of the convenience of ant begins to show itself. Here you see a new directory has been added to the source code directory tree. The new directory holds the source code of the classes that will be put into the jar file. Let me start out by showing you the new servlet. This servlet is the same as the previous one, except this one shows a couple of new lines of text. It displays a line containing a count of the number of milliseconds since January the 1st, 1970. It gets the value by calling the method named millisecond count. Now, this is a method of the nowString class, and the class is stored in the jar file. The second line it displays requires another call to a method of the newString class to get the text format of the current time and date. Everything else is the same as before, except, of course, the creation of the nowString object. So there's nothing new here. There isn't anything new in the web.xml file either. The only thing different are the names. The name of the servlet's class is showNow, and it will be referred to as showNow with a lowercase name in the URL. The jar file in this example contains just one class, and it's simple enough. It only has two methods. They both return strings representing the current date and time. The first one is named millisecond count and uses a date object to get the numeric value of the count of milliseconds. There are a number of ways of converting this to a string, but I just took the shortcut. I just concatenated the number with a zero-length string, and that forces the conversion. The second method lets the date object convert itself to a string and returns whatever results. Okay, those are all the parts. All that's left is the build file. Now this is very similar to the build file in the previous example, but it does have a few more targets. It still has an init target at the very top. This one sets the property names, including the auto-deploy directory location. Then it creates 3 directories. The servlet work directory is the one to contain the class files of the servlet. The jar work directory will hold the class files that are to be inserted into the jar file. And the lib work directory will hold the new jar file. Remember, you can call these directories anything you like. It's just my way of naming things this way. I find that creating directories to hold all the different types of things makes writing the ant scripts easier because ant likes to work with whole directories full of files all at once. Now, here's a target that none of the other targets depend on. This one can only be specified on the command line of ant. It deletes all the files and directories created by the build. This can be handy not just for cleaning up, but for forcing everything to be built new again. This script is written so ant won't build anything that it doesn't need. Here is the deploy target, the one that's executed by default. It depends on both init and make war, so these are always executed first. All the deploy target does is copy the existing war file to the server. Here is the target that builds the war file. Notice that it depends on both make servlets and make jar. Both the servlet class and the jar file will be read when the target makes its war file. Just like the last time, the classes tag specifies the directory containing the list of files to go into the classes directory in the war file. Now, here is the lib tag, the one that holds the list of files to go into the lib directory of the war file. It's the jar file that's in here. This is the make servlets tag, which compiles the servlets into class files. Notice that it depends on init, just like the previous targets. It's okay to have multiple targets have the same dependencies. Init will only happen once, so no matter how many targets depend on it, it just executes the one time. This makes it easy for you to make sure your dependencies are set up right and that they always execute first. This target also depends on make jar because you can't compile the servlet without the jar being already compiled and in place.